So like, but he was looking at that and he's like, you had these awesome posts and shit, but they were all like during this 1 year period and then they stopped.
Oh yeah.
I was like, yeah, because I'm like, after a year,
that's how it's done.
It's like you're getting no feedback and you're like, does this even matter? And then you skip one.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting tying because this gets back to jiu-jitsu technique. I was talking to somebody about this the other day, but it's like when you don't get feedback, your brain only really does what it thinks is necessary. I think we're like lazy by genetic design, right?
As Art Vaney says, lazy overeaters. That's what design.
Yeah, like that's by design. Yeah. That's what we are, right? Yeah. And so, like when you're like, I got to make this happen every Friday, I'm going to make a post or whatever. Yeah. Something happens, like something actually occurs and prevents you from doing it legitimately, but then nothing happens.
Right.
So you go, like your brain kind of logs that in and then you don't realize it. And then a couple weeks later you skip another one and then it turns into every 2 weeks you skip and that kind of shit, right? And then eventually you look up and you're like, fuck, I haven't written an article in a year. You know what I mean? Or whatever.
Yep.
And the same thing, I was having that conversation with fucking somebody yesterday about jiu-jitsu. They were like, their technique in certain areas, they're like, I can do this technique up to blue belt. Like anybody under blue belt, I'll do it to, but then anybody over blue belt, I can't do it to.
Right.
And we were looking at it, we're really picking apart a technique. Like, I don't know, man. Sometimes I get too not interested. Sometimes I acquiesce. I've realized in this conversation yesterday that as a teacher, I give in a little bit to the weakness of giving them what they're looking for and not giving them what would be best for them.
Right. It's like, what's that? Give a man a fish.
Well, you know what it's like? I used this as an analogy, and it hit me how bad it was what I was doing when I said this as an analogy because it's so accurate. It's like you're in the store and you're trying to get your kid fucking broccoli because they need it. And then you're like, they're just like, ice cream. And you're just like, after a while, you should go, dude, you're getting fucking broccoli. Like, you got to have dinner.
You look like shit.
You got to have dinner, man. You got to have dinner. Like, eat your dinner.
You look like shit. You
and then broccoli. Maybe we'll talk about ice cream afterwards, but you got to eat your fucking dinner, right?
And then they start screaming.
But then they scream and they scream and they scream. And after a while, you're just like, dude, fuck it, whatever. Just ice cream. I don't give a shit. Just fuck
don't scream.
But you know what I mean? Like, that's what I've seen that play out in fucking stores. I've watched that play out in stores.
Oh, I hate that.
Right? And then I realized I'm doing that on the mat. You know what I mean?
Well, that's what the advanced classes.
Were you here for? Well, yeah. Were you here for the last test?
It's ice cream. Fucking.
But it shouldn't always be. It shouldn't always be.
You do make them go back and do like, all right, review before we do this. Go back. And
review. Not as much as I should. I'm not making the kids eat enough fucking broccoli.
Yeah, because some of those motherfuckers come to the fucking intermediate class.
Do you remember? Were you at the last test? Did you?
No, because it's my bachelor party.
So here's the deal, right? Like I'm watching this test, and I realize like. Everybody's got great white belt technique. Like the stuff on the white belt, like the actual individual techniques is great, right? Yeah. And then the advanced stuff like purple belt and up, everybody looks really, really good. But when I was having people do the drilling stuff, like give and take drills, specifically like give and take drills, and people were fucking it up. And it's a real simple concept, but I was like, I saw one person fucking it up, and you're like, when one person screws something up in a test, it may be them.
Their fault.
It may be them. It may be them, right? When 4 people fuck something up,
the teacher.
Your teaching is wrong. Like that's like that. That's
even
not
if you're
an
teaching
accident.
it right. You're not conveying it. It's not crossing. The...
Well, you could be teaching it beautifully, but it's like if I'm teaching everybody in the room speaks English, and I start teaching in German, they're not going to get the right idea.
Exactly. So there's a barrier there somehow.
I'm not getting my idea across to them, right? And that was really apparent. And then I realized, like, as I'm sitting down, I'm like, okay, let me go back and think about what I'm doing. Like, as a teacher, what am I doing? And then I go, well, okay, so why are they not getting it? Let me go back and review in my head when I'm teaching that, how am I getting it across? And then I have to go, fuck, I haven't really covered that in a long, long time.
Right.
And then I realized, like, man, like, what am I, like, the time for that would be, like you said, in the advanced class. But it's like, the problem is when people come in for the advanced class and they walk in the door, they want ice cream. Yeah. And if I'm like, look, here's the deal.
They earned it.
Here's the deal.
They earned their ice cream.
Let's string, here's 5 basic techniques. I want to see start to finishes with counters that hit all of these 5 techniques. Or I want whatever. Like, I want to see give and take, but I want to see you at some point work this escape into the mix. Or like, there's ways to put it together. Like, I'm not creative in teaching process, right?
Yep.
But then you realize, like, when I do that, you're going to have people that go because they want to do some flipping omoplata fucking upside down bullshit. And the problem is when I was brand new to teaching, I really hammered a lot on the other stuff. But it's like after a while, your kids wear you down and you're like, fuck it, ice cream. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it's been fucking 15 years later. And I realized after the last test how often I go, fuck it. Just, all right, look, so here's this fucking crazy double surfboard fucking crucifix thing.
The other side of that is...
Which I did Monday.
What I find awesome, I like to watch high level... I like to watch Paul roll. I like to watch... Because
you can say it even though I'm right here.
No, hacksaw roll. I don't see you roll that often. I don't see you roll that often. Well, you don't. Recently, you've been coming back from Wednesday nights. What do you want me to do? Anyway,
I'm here every Wednesday.
So
you duck me, but
I like to watch people that I know teach the curriculum, and I love to watch them do the basic and intermediate stuff on people and do it live.
Sure.
I love to see that. I don't give a shit. I can, if I want to watch fucking that crazy shit, I'll just go on YouTube all day and watch that. What I find beautiful is when I see someone do like a perfect pendulum armbar, or someone does like a perfect fucking, pass, like stack pass, or when I see that movement, you, of course, obviously you doing stuff like that, like that's, I'm like, yeah, I know that. Like, I love seeing it come to fruition.
It's funny because I think this is kind of a systemic thing all the way through jiu-jitsu there's no way for me to talk about this and not sound like a fucking salesperson, right? Mm-hmm. But that was the point of making the online thing, right? Yeah. That was the point of making the online project, because it's like I'm looking at all of these different online resources. And it's like everything is just a fucking 300 hours of fucking backflip butter guard fucking bullshit, and you're just like
butter guard.
I mean, whatever.
That's when you just say people just slip right out of it.
You just say random words followed by guard, and it's a new thing on YouTube, right?
It's called the hut knife pass.
So, but it's like all of these things are like. It's like there's all these sites that then they have like this fucking amazing shit, dude. I'll look at Marcella's site all fucking day. It's amazing. Yeah. But then it's like that's cool.
Where the money is.
That's cool, but like you can't take a day one. You can't take a person that is like, I do not know or understand jiu-jitsu. Yeah. And give them a fucking website.
I'll be honest.
Or there's that one like Gracie Academy Online. But quite honestly, like, you know what I mean? I owe a lot to the Gracie family because they brought jiu-jitsu to what it is, and then I took it, and then that's my entire life, and blah, blah, blah. But it's like that's a very basic. Their curriculum is this very like nuts and bolts, start at day one thing, but it's also honestly that those techniques, that basic curriculum is super outdated. Do you know what I mean? Like you don't do the double leg like that anymore. Like you don't, you know what I mean? So it's like,
especially nowadays.
No. I find like two versions. There's either super antiquated traditional, but based on it's like it's geared towards the beginner, but it's like the techniques aren't. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like the techniques aren't up to snuff anymore. And then there's these, I mean, not to say all of them aren't, because like, if you watch the demonstration of those basic techniques, probably 50% of them like are identical.
How to take down an old Irish bare knuckle fighter.
But you know what I mean? Like, so for example, the choke defense standing, that choke defense standing, it's exactly the same. Turning trip, exactly the same. Yep. But then we get into some other stuff. You know what I mean? Like there's that little hip hop that we take from wrestling. It's not in there. You know what I mean? And that's like a fucking, you got to know it. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's like the stuff that's out there for beginners is like, people will argue that it's antiquated, and the stuff that's not antiquated is like fucking levitation shit. And you're like, it's kind of fucking lacking, you know? So that was the reason I did that whole thing in the first place. But it's just weird that like, I was so into it, but then in my own personal practice, like I give in to the fucking screaming kid for the ice cream a lot. In here, and I didn't realize it until the other day.
I don't see a problem with that. It falls on you can't cover everything. You, as a business and as an artist, I would say, as a practitioner, a martial artist, you have to offer that fun stuff. That's what makes creativity.
I mean, you have to.
So you got to have the advanced class. That's the advanced class. They choose to go to that.
I hear you, but the problem is, I think in teaching, like you can't go.
Yeah.
It's like with the motivational stuff with parenting. Like you can't go, well, the only thing is force them to eat broccoli while they cry, or give in and let them eat ice cream. Like you can't be
Yeah.
the real good teachers are the ones that disguise the fucking broccoli and food that
Right.
the kid
Like
wants to
puree
eat anyway,
inside
or whatever.
vanilla ice cream.
You know what I mean? But it's like if I was a good enough teacher, and I think I am when I'm concentrating, like when I'm trying.
Yeah.
As a goal, and this was the point I got to get to, is like intention, right? Like when I was trying, if I try really hard, I think I can make the not white belt, but not quite the flashy jump upside down shit. I think I can make that intermediate level material interesting, but it takes creative effort to do it.
Yeah.
And you don't realize it as you're doing it. But like you start to get this, like you slack a little bit and have a fun class, which every once in a while it's a little ice cream is fine. Like you slack and have a fun class and nobody dies and nobody's jiu-jitsu falls apart. And then you slack the next week and you have a little bit more of a fun class. And then instead of being half and half,
It's hard to go back too.
But then you know what I mean? And then you look back and you're like, holy shit, like in my advanced class, I haven't done any like, let's work on these connection drills, which in theory are super important.
Yeah.
Like I haven't done that in months. And then you realize like, fuck man, you know, like, but you don't realize how far you're drifting until you do it. And that's my point of the whole thing that I was saying earlier, was that things only happen by necessity. If the situation makes it necessary, you will do it. But if the situation doesn't make it necessary, the only thing that will come through is if you in your head are like, this is fucking necessary.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so like the guy I was talking to was saying how like this mount escape, when we went over this super detailed mount escape yesterday, like the basics, but like let's hammer details, right?
Yeah.
We're talking about it and his elbow's in the fucking wrong place. He's a purple belt.
Bridge and roll?
Yeah. His elbow's in the wrong place. And I was like, why is your elbow
Outside the knees.
I was like, what's your elbows doing there? And he's like, what? And then I had to look at the next guy. I was like, you come here, show me where your elbows go. Blue belt, elbows wrong. And you know what I mean? And then you're like, shit, there's 3 people in the room with their elbows wrong, and these are all colored belts. And it's like,
This makes for a lousy radio question, but like where are his elbows going? We're doing a bridge and roll, so is he reaching
bridge and roll.
across the
Inside
center
the
line? Is
like
that
we're
the
gonna
elbow
get this
issue?
is terrible podcast material
That's
because
what I'm saying,
like
but
we're not talking
I'm too
about
curious.
we're not
Is he-
talking about
is this-
frog raping monkeys and stuff like
Could
we
be
like
elbow
to do
too
sometimes.
fast,
But
too far past the center line.
well, no, like the elbow was about 3 inches up above the knee,
Oh, yeah.
which looks fine, except when you bridge, their knees track forward as they try
Yeah.
to keep their balance, and
They
it's
go
less
backwards.
likely to put their hands on the floor.
Right, yeah.
It's a super small detail, literally a 2-inch.
I've been
detail.
hammering that detail when I've been teaching. Is you got to keep pressure on the bottom.
Well,
part.
so here's the.
Yeah.
But it's not that they're not. It's not that they don't know it. It's not that you're not teaching it. The
They
problem
don't take
is
the class either.
well, they're doing the so again the colored belts are doing advanced classes,
Right, yeah.
And since I'm not going back and hammering down on basics,
Yeah.
they're not getting that
Yeah.
idea right. So it's not necessary. The environment's not making that correction necessary, and then they roll with white belts and blue belts.
Yeah.
And they can bridge. You can put your hands behind your fucking back and bridge a white belt off you. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's like those details don't become necessitated anymore because of those people.
Yeah.
And then they finally roll with a purple belt, and it's like that's not working. But then when they switch to something else, it does work. So then they just stop trying to do bridge and roll altogether, and they chalk it up to it's a lower percentage escape.
Yeah, they only do
You know what I
an
mean?
elbow or something.
But then the problem is there's this whole fucking technique that just doesn't exist. It's just out of their head, right?
Yeah.
And it made me realize with those people, it's got to be intention. If the environment is not physically forcing you to make those details, you have to physically force yourself. Because like I said, if you're going to roll the white belt, you don't have to put your elbows in the right spot. So they're not going to make you put your elbows in
Yeah.
the right spot. So that means if your elbows are in the right spot, it's because you bothered to go, that is not where they go. They go right there. That's where they go.
Yeah.
But like something's got to make it necessary. And if you don't have that kind of mental discipline, it's not going to be. Right. And then I realized I'm doing the same thing with teaching. So I can't really, I wanted to shit on the kid.
Yeah.
I really wanted to shut. My first instinct was just hammer on this kid, just shit on him. Like, what the fuck are you doing, bro?
Yeah.
And then I'm like, right as I'm about to say that to him, in my head, I'm like, okay, well, how have you, like, if the environment's not necessitating, it means I'm not walking around hammering on your basics. It means you haven't taken the class. It means the classes that you're taking, we're not discussing it, which means I'm slacking because all I'm doing is entertaining you with fucking ice cream. Because the kid's got a double shin X guard sweep that he'll fucking sweep 90% of the school with, but can't fucking escape mount. Do you know what I mean? So then it's like, there's something
Well,
wrong
it doesn't
with
get
my
mounted
teaching.
that often either.
Yeah, probably not, but still.
I've never had a double shin X guard sweep, but I've gone through that cycle where so much that we learned on the